conference today is about the linkages between construction and engineering and the oil and gas sector. As the country knows now, the development phase of the oil and gas sector is going to involve construction of the oil fields, construction of the pipeline, and construction of the refinery. In all, this construction is estimated to take up the bulk of the $20 billion that is expected to be invested in the oil and gas sector in the next 5 years. The bulk of this investment is going to go into construction and engineering work. So the objective of this workshop today was to bring together especially the Ugandan engineers and contractors and the associations to which they belong, to present these opportunities to them, to present the magnitude of this opportunity, to present the details of these engineering opportunities, to present the standards and requirements.
The oil and gas sector now, as you know, is growing and is big. And Ministry of Works and Transport is one of the big stakeholders. We have so many activities going in there to do with construction and engineering. We also have the airport, Kabale Airport, there are the roads, and there are the refineries, and there's going to be a lot of construction. So the purpose of this conference really is to get together all the participants to do in the construction and engineering industry, so that they can listen to the opportunities which are there, which are many, and we really want them to make joint ventures, to interact and work out, see those opportunities.
In taking this conference forward, we have invited the licensed oil companies to present these projects. We have also invited some of the companies that are already doing this work in the oil and gas sector to share with the engineers these opportunities. We have also invited the engineering associations, the Association of Engineers, the Association of Architects, to come here and see how they can mobilize their members to really partake in this investment. It's important that it's done quickly and efficiently, because this phase is expected to last not more than 5 years.
In a typical EPC contract, the number of opportunities, kind of the activities that are going to be undertaken. And it is those activities that will present opportunities for us in construction and services. And for each activity, which we've tried to break down the opportunities for us. Right from engineering, you go through construction, both for contractors, early civil engineering works, construction of camps, field access roads, site preparation and fencing, piling works, mechanical works, electrical works. Those are all embedded within the different parts of the EPC contracts. And then after the actual construction, there are still opportunities in mechanical completion, function testing, system commissioning, startup and ramp-up activities. So it's very important that one looks at all those four corners in detail and look at where can I render service? Where am I most suited to participate? Okay, there are also services for those that are still doing drilling and completion services. All this still presents other opportunities because there are new licenses and blocks which have just been let out. And those blocks are going to present their unique opportunities. As you can see, there's well services, there's wellheads, drilling fluids, waste management. Those are all activities that are going to happen as part of the exploration services, which also present opportunities for those in construction and engineering services. Now, when I was talking to Ernest, he did mention that for those that are not yet in oil and gas, they may not be able to granularize exactly the opportunities that are there for them, and try to drill down a little bit in what type of services that can be delivered. I mean, from all the EPCs and the wells and completion.
What happened today was we were bringing them together, give them information about the contracts in construction and engineering that are expected, the amount of money that we are looking at that are going to be sunk in this sector in oil and gas, in construction alone, but also to prepare them, to empower them with information to allow them to be able to proceed and prepare themselves to compete for these contracts in oil and gas sector, in construction alone. Thank you, Executive Director and the Chairman of this session, joint venture partners, contractors in oil and gas, potential contractors in oil and gas, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would like to take you a little bit into something different, show you how we see the sector developing and the opportunities we see, especially in construction and engineering, we as the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, in regulating the sector. Allow me now to take you briefly through the major projects that are ongoing in the country. A figure, $20 billion, has been mentioned. This is the envisaged investment that we see that has been planned to develop the oil and gas resources, commercialize them to first oil. Now, under the upstream, we have two major projects under development currently, that is Tilenga and Kingfisher. Now, between these two projects, there are two central processing facilities being planned. There are pipelines, well pads, roads, and camps. Mr. Kasekend has gone through some of these in detail. Then we have the Uganda refinery project. This refinery is planned at a capacity of 60,000 barrels per day. And the expected investment is between $3 to $4 billion. We have the East African crude oil pipeline, which will have an approximate capacity of 200,000 barrels per day. I'll briefly go into the details of this. And the expected investment is about $3.5 billion. Then we have the support infrastructure, including the airport, including the Kabale Industrial Park and the associated roads. And the estimates so far are $1 billion for this infrastructure. Just a little bit of detail in the individual projects. Just the quick numbers. For Tilenga, ladies and gentlemen, the fields that are contained in this project are Jobiri, Njiri, and Gunya. These touch part of, these are in the Murchison Falls National Park. And then we have Chigogole, Nsoga, Kasamene, Wairindi in the Vulisa area. The global stock, this is the total amount of oil in place, is about 5.8 billion barrels for Tilenga. The reserves, these are the recoverable amounts, amount to 855 million barrels. And then these numbers. But I think suffice, the numbers that are more useful here are the well pads. There are 31 well pads, and they are going to drill over 416 wells. And then the total length of the flow lines, these are the pipelines that connect well pads to the processing facility within the field, is 180 kilometers. On the Tilenga project, there will be an industrial area put there, which is about 2 kilometers by 1.5 kilometers. There are operational camps already. The existing camps, one has about a capacity of 300 people. There will be a drilling camp of 400 people. And then there will be a construction camp inside the industrial area. This one is bigger than the others, and this is expected to have about 1,800 beds. Among other infrastructure, there is the Nile crossing, because some fields are in the north of the Victoria Nile, and the processing facility is south of the Victoria Nile. So there will be facilities for crossing the Nile. There will be lake water obstruction. The pressures in the fields in the Albertine Graben are low. So for us to be able to recover more oil, every barrel you take out, you inject a barrel of water so that you maximize recovery. So there will be water obstruction facilities. And of course, the feeder line connecting Bulisa to Kabale Industrial Park, which will be the delivery area. The other facilities, of course, there will be power generation. This will be at the CPF, at the Central Processing Facility. The airstrip, there is an existing airstrip in Bugungu. This one is being upgraded now to make sure that it actually serves the purpose during construction and production. And then road construction. There are existing roads and then new roads that are being opened up for development. There will be, because of the heavy traffic that is expected and planned to go down the Graben, there will be a checkpoint and a sort of parking place in Masindi. And this will have a capacity of 250 trucks parking and some 100 beds, offices and accommodation.
Thank you very much, Alex, for making the presentation on behalf of the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. We are tight on time, so without spending too much more time, I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Chibirango, who is going to make a presentation on behalf of the licensed companies. These are Total, Sinok, and Talo. Of course, we have the new ones, Oranto and Ama. So please welcome Mr. Chibirango to make the presentation on behalf of the people who are supposed to take FID. So we are all eagerly waiting. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you very much your capacity as ED or PAU and the PAU as well for organizing this conference. Very much needed for the industry. It's the first of many that we need to really delve into the detail of what is required for us to get oil out of the ground and commercialize it. So we thought that it was important to start with a health and safety moment, which, because it's quite important, we are dealing with hydrocarbons, that we emphasize the need for the industry to be cautious and play their part in planning and in implementing stringent health and safety measures to be able to work in this environment safely, but also to protect the environment. So the key aspects that we see, especially in the construction activities, where we don't have hydrocarbon yet, especially in the planning and the implementation of surface facilities before we hook up the wells and produce the oil, the risks have to be measured and have to be linked to the construction activities. And this is what we tend to do in all our contract preparation. And we have one of the exhibits which is dedicated to HSE. And you'll find that it is not the same for every contract. So you have to be careful when you're reading this material that we send out, not to take it for granted that because you're bidding for X, Y, and Z contracts, they're all going to have the same HSE requirements. So it's important that you read and understand what the scope of work is and what the risks are going to be. So we've highlighted some of the key risks that we see in construction: lifting, excavation, confined space, and the environment. We are working in a very sensitive environment in a national park, so we have to protect it. The ESIA has just been we have received endorsement of the ESIA, and we would like to make sure that we implement the conditions thereof. So what the big message there is that we need to plan. We need to plan for our activities. We need to plan for the HSE aspects associated with those activities. And should we fail to plan, then we are doomed to fail.
I'm Joseph Kibirango, and I'm from the upstream. So the upstream is the consortium of companies that have been contracted to the government to produce oil. Yeah.
Right. And the core activity that you're involved in right now is.
So we are at the moment we are planning the execution of the production of oil. So what that means is We are looking at the facilities that will help us to extract the oil out of the ground, the facilities above the ground that will help us to transfer the oil to a processing facility. We are looking at all the facilities that will help in treating the oil, separating the oil from the water and the gas, and then all the facilities that will help in storing the oil up to the point when we can transfer it to the midstream. The midstream being the refinery, the 60,000 barrels of oil per day refinery, and the pipeline, the ECO project, which is the East African Crude Oil Project, which is moving the oil from Kabale, the delivery point, to Tanga in Tanzania. So we have presented quite a number of opportunities throughout the value chain, right from drilling through to all the facilities that need to be installed to help in the production and the production, treatment and transfer of the crude to the market and commercialization of the crude. So this is an opportune time for the construction industry and the players in the construction industry to position themselves in a way that they can participate in this development. We had PAU, the director, saying to us that it is estimated to between $15 to $20 billion of investment is going to be made, and a big part of that is going to be within the 4 or 5 years of the construction of this project. And this is where the construction industry is involved. So we really need them to keep a keen eye. A lot of these projects are going to be tendered out by us and by all our main contractors. So they keep a keen eye in the media to make sure that they take part and they look at the requirements, the requirements that we put out there, make sure that they comply with the requirements. We shall have many clarifications with them, but let them not be shy to take part.
Seriously, what I think that Ugandan contractors, our colleagues must emphasize much more on the quality, on the capacity. What is important for the future projects in the oil sector? It's important the capacity of the companies, quality. Also, material suppliers must raise the quality of the products, because this will be monitored and tested and certified by international institutions. So this is a huge importance. So government also needs to pay attention to the investing in the quality, in quality control.
I just want to remind you that you will agree that these are not just many projects. These are significant projects coming to Uganda. Therefore, the countrymen and countrywomen in the engineering and construction fraternity, there is work on your hands. I think now you can always ask when the oil will come out of the ground, but when you bear in mind that all those projects have to be implemented before the oil comes out of the ground, I think you will have many questions before you come to the one, when will the oil come out of the ground? We will also now want you to join the petroleum sector in ensuring that the oil and gas creates lasting value to society. One of the biggest ways that the oil and gas sector is going to create lasting value to the society is by you, ladies and gentlemen in the engineering fraternity and construction fraternity, taking advantage of all those opportunities. If they pass by and we haven't participated, they are not going to build another export pipeline again in this country. They are not going to build a new refinery in the country again. They may expand it, but that will not be as big as building a new one. In the 5 years, the investment expected is about $20 billion. There will indeed be operation and maintenance, as the keynote address was indicated, but just bear in mind the magnitude. During operation and maintenance, it will also be $20 billion, but it will be $20 billion over a period of 25 years. So we have $20 billion to be spent during the construction phase of 5 years, and we shall have another 20 billion spent over 25 years during operation and maintenance. That is the level of magnitude. So we need to work very hard to ensure that the 5 years of construction, we participate fully, we engage fully, and we get value out of it.
In our presentation that we had 4 presenters. One, starting from the consulting engineers, one of the consulting engineers, NBW, Engineer Batumbia, and then we also had another one from Engineer Vincent, the president of the UIPE, Uganda Institution of Professional Engineers. Then we also had a presentation from UNABSEC, Uganda National Association of Civil and Contracting Engineers in Uganda. Then we had one from the local contractors, Kasese Nail Company. And in one of the presentations, they gave us highlights of a number of things. One, they started with the experience, past experience, of how they've gone through the various challenges, that the various achievements that they've done in terms of related to the oil and gas sector.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, MC, for introducing me. Sure, a number of people were expecting to see Mrs. Dorcas, the permanent secretary, as indicated on the program. So as you've heard, I'm not Mrs. Dorcas, but Joseph Kobisheshe, the director of the ICT, and I'll be chairing this session. So without wasting much time, what I would like to do is invite the first presenter from the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, who is going to give us a presentation on the industry standards in the construction sector. As you heard from the presentation this morning, standards in the oil and gas sector is very critical. We see that as an enabler or as an inhibitor to opportunities in the oil and gas sector, depending from which angle you look at it. So it is very important that we follow through the presentation that is going to be given by the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, which is the agency that is responsible for developing and promoting standards in Uganda. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from the lunch break, and good afternoon. UNBS is the only national standards body in Uganda. Remember, UNBS, its highest instance is the National Standards Council. The role of the National Standards Council is to oversee the overall management of all activities running in UNBS. And this council is supported by the executive director who is heading this organization. UNBS is a full member of ISO. In the previous presentations, I've been hearing people mention of ISO. I think you can see how great it is to be a full member of ISO. And through UNBS, as Uganda, it is our greatest opportunity to be full members. Why do I say so? We have a lot of benefits if we are full members of ISO. We have all the rights as Ugandans through Uganda National Bureau of Standards. We have all the obligations through UNBS as Uganda.
The Petroleum Authority of Uganda is currently working very closely with the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, together with the international oil companies and other players, to see how the issue of standards can be an enabler rather than a barrier to achieving national content. You heard from the presentation that there are over 3,600 standards that are in the of which about 1,200 of these are in the engineering and construction sector alone. And so far, over 300 standards have been developed for the oil and gas sector, the petroleum sector alone. So the work that is ongoing is to see which standards of these, in say, as applied to the oil and gas sector and engineering, the standards that can be adopted and then disseminated to all stakeholders, so that as you work out your plans, as you do your work, then you're aware of what standards need to be achieved in the sector. We'll have a Q&A session after the next presentation. I'm sure some of you will have questions that you would like to put forward. I request that you keep these and we listen to the next presentation, and then we'll allow some time for Q&A. So at this juncture, allow me to invite our next speaker, who is Mr. Brian Tahinduka. Brian is the sector head of the power and infrastructure at Stanbic Bank Uganda Limited. And we can have all these nice plans on paper and in our minds, but to actually implement them, we need a number of resources, of which one of the most important ones, if probably not the most important, is the financial capital. So Brian is going to take us through the financing for construction and engineering projects. You're most welcome, Brian.
This is very important because for me and you, this is how we will get into the oil and gas projects. Now, Stanbic Bank is the largest bank in Uganda. At the same time, we are a locally listed bank in Uganda. So meaning that we are a South African founded bank, but at the same time, we are a local bank in Uganda, because you and me can actually go to the money markets and actually buy shares, and you own a stake in Stanbic Bank. Then also, as a bank, we have a market capitalization of 454. That is the size of our capitalization in terms of millions of dollars. Then we also have a single obligor limit of $54 million. I'll pause and talk about this part. A single obligor limit, what this means is, as you do your contracting, if you are awarded a project worth $54 million, we can actually finance you that money without looking outside Ugandan market. So when you talk about single obligor limit, you're actually speaking about how much money in terms of quantum we can lend out per project, per client. So this is very important. Do not limit yourself as you bid or source for work. If you have the capacity and the capability, we have the money. I actually came with the money, so I hope I will work out with some contracts. The other part I also need to speak about is our local credit rating by Fitch. Now, I'm sure if you've tried to get work within the oil and gas sector, they have asked you we need a AAA rated bank. When they ask for a AAA rated bank, this is what they are looking for. And we have it locally here. So when you are bidding, when you're looking for recommendation for work, please knock on our doors. We have the rating you need. We have already acquired it. It's out there, it's public. We can support you, at least have you acquire that work, then we talk financing. The other part, you need to, the good news that happened to us as a bank towards end of last week and the early of this week, was we were again named the best bank in Uganda by the Euro Money. So again, that's a demonstration. That's 2019, 2018, 2017, 16, and consistently we're doing that. It's not by mistake, but we are consistently ensuring that we drive and support the sector.
Okay, thank you very much, Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause to our two panelists, Brian and Zaina. Thank you very much for the presentations. So I would like to invite you to take back your seats as we go into the next session, which is the closing session, really. But then I see we have two questions on the screens which are directed to the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. And I think there is no better person to answer those two questions other than the Director for Technical Services at the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, Ms. Penina Ahebwa, who I would like to invite now to come and take a seat here with me. And before you give us a way forward, to please respond to those two questions on the screen. Whether the PAU offers a certificate of registration once you register on the national, that should have been suppliers database system. And then there is another one to do with after registering on the NSD, what are the processes of tendering in the oil and gas sector? How can one know that there are business opportunities and so forth? So I'll request you to respond to those two questions, but also to come forward and please give us a way forward.
The Permanent Secretary, Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, our IOCs, the operators present, our Executive Director, our Petroleum Authority of Uganda, our distinguished participants, and especially representatives of different ministries, agencies, and departments of government. We really appreciate you for being here since 9 a.m. when we started until now, and for honoring our invitation as PAU. Before I go into the wrap-up, my name is Penina Ahebwa, as introduced, and I work as the Director for Technical Support Services. That directorate does many things, but one of them is to handle issues of national content. And so we call ourselves the Directorate of the People. We are there to work for you and to see to it that if you're competent and there's an opportunity for you, it shouldn't go to anyone else, but you should be able to do it. Before I go into the wrap-up, again, I will answer the questions that have been posed to PAU on whether we offer certificates once you have been registered on the NSD. For now, we don't. We are not offering those certificates for many reasons. One of them is, we are evolving as an institution, and to offer a certificate, there are so many requirements you need to have on that certificate to make sure it is not going to be duplicated, or someone will not go to NASA or Nkrumah and print it out and go and present it to the IOCs. So we have to put a number of systems in place before we start offering those certificates. But what we do is to, in real time, once you have been qualified, you will appear on the database, which is online, and it can be seen wherever you are in the world. You cannot lower the standards of the oil and gas sector to reach the standards of Ugandans. You can only up your game. And so we had a discussion around standards led by UNBS. We want to appreciate you as well. Again, the oil and gas sector and financing cannot be separated. The projects are really capital intensive. And if you're not loaded in your pocket, there is no way you can achieve something in there. But you don't really have to have that money as you, an individual contractor. There are many ways that have been demonstrated by Stanbic Bank, but also joint venturing with people that are loaded financially. And so I want to believe the only remaining deliverable is to identify what we take away as government, but also as potential contractors, what we need to do to be able to effectively take up the opportunities that have been displayed before us. We have initiated a list of these takeaways, but you can feel free online to say this and this is missing, or this and this is not necessary.
So I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being a great audience during this session. I hope I have also not been a very bad chair. After the closing remarks from the Permanent Secretary, I'll hand over to the MC for any other administrative remarks before we depart, including I saw a question on how to access the presentations from this workshop, but also looks like other previous workshops. So that can be addressed on where the materials can be found. But allow me now the honor to invite the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, Mr. Robert Kasande, to come to the podium and give us his closing remarks, but also officially close this workshop. Thank you.
I must apologize that I wasn't able to be here throughout the session. So if I say something that has already been articulated, you'll understand. But to avoid that, I will say a few words. I will not get into a lot of things today. I'm from the policy side largely, and our policy, which we did in 2008, has two key objectives that are relevant to engagements like these. One is ensuring national participation. That is objective 7, and 8 says supporting the development and maintenance of national expertise. I would like to thank the PAU for helping us to implement these two objectives. Because without fora like this national expertise will not be built. Stakeholders like you will not have the information that is required to ensure that you have that optimal participation. You may have heard that this project, the oil and gas project, has very many components. From the wells that are going to be drilled, the various well pads, the central processing facilities, the refineries, the pipelines. That scope comes with a heavy spend. My thinking is that while I have seen many engagements targeting would-be service providers, this is one of those that will have a heavy spend, both targeting yourselves but also targeting the international world. So it is important that while you are from different disciplines, whether it is civil works, whether it is mechanical and engineering, whether it is EPC, whether it is consultancy, that you take away what you've heard today and put it into practice. I would like to reiterate once again that whatever you've heard here today is as serious as it gets. So, but it can only be useful to you if you go back and strategize on how to implement what has been told of you. Strategy will get you out of the situation you are in to be able to participate. We've seen this before in the exploration and appraisal phase. The companies that strategized, they did well. They did pretty well. So please, I urge you, develop yourselves, get the right partnerships, and be able to prepare very well. Ladies and gentlemen, with those remarks, I thank you for coming in big numbers. When I came, I was telling Ernest that, hey, this is some serious interest. So thank you for turning up, big capacity built. And I wish you well as you prepare. And I believe that when that FID is taken, I'll be seeing some of you participating. With those few remarks, I'm glad to declare this conference closed. Thank you very much.
We have been attending these workshops to prepare ourselves for the oil and gas, and we've been preparing, and I think now, as the permanent secretary assured, that the FDI is soon happening. So I think I suggest that the local companies prepare themselves even more, especially for health and safety standards. I have worked with one of the projects. Our company implemented the Kingfisher resettlement houses with SINOC, but the health, we are lacking a lot in health and safety, but SINOC really helped us to improve in areas where we are lacking.
20 years ago, I went for a master's in construction management in UK, in a university called Loughborough University. And in my course, one of the modules was project management, and the lecturer was a project manager from Shell, and he was always presenting these beautiful slides on oil and gas and all that. So in my mind, I used to think I have to go back to Uganda, and Uganda is like 300 years behind. So this is so inspiring that in 20 years' time, I am seeing what I was seeing from the Shell projects happening in Uganda. I think we are in a new era, and this is actually something serious now. Uganda is back on the world map, and apart from Uganda being on the world map because of Idi Amin, this time we are on the world map because of being an oil producer and a country having significant projects like this.